This is Rob Cornish of HomeXam.ca, a home inspection company in Ottawa, Canada. I have Francis Lavoie on the phone with me today. Francis is a spokesperson for Health Canada on issues concerning indoor air quality. Thank you for joining me today, Francis.
You're very welcome.
Do you want to offer a bit of clarification on your responsibilities with Health Canada?
Well, actually, I'm a biologist by training. My section is responsible for doing risk assessment on indoor air pollutants, trying to figure out what are the health effects of these pollutants.
Okay, so contaminants in our homes come in many forms. What contaminants is Health Canada currently addressing?
We addressed a lot of chemicals. There are mainly three forms of chemicals or indoor air contaminants, so we call them, are biological, chemical, and radioactive, radon, for example. But I think you already talked to our radon spokesperson on your blog, so I'm not going to talk about this today. We try to address all the pollutants that are found in Canada, in Canadian homes. I'm sure you and everyone's aware that there are several hundreds of chemicals indoors, so we cannot address them all at the same time. So we try to prioritize them according to what we think are the most important for Canadians to be addressed. Right. So the most common pollutant in Canadian homes is definitely mold. There are other chemicals that are as important to address. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so some of those other things the top two or three would be formaldehyde and volatile off gases, something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah. After mold, I would say the most common pollutants are what we call off-gassing pollutants. So all the volatile organic compounds, the VOCs. And that includes formaldehyde, but other types of VOCs as well, such as benzene, toluene, everything that is, as their names say, volatile. So these are chemicals that are not on the gas form per se, but they evaporate and they volatilize very easily at room temperature. So our main way of exposure to these pollutants is through inhalation of their gaseous form. They often come from off-gassing building materials such as paints, glues, adhesives, furniture, carpets, stuff like that.
Okay, so how big an impact do air quality issues have on the health of Canadians? Does it change how people live after they've been overexposed?
The health effects of indoor air pollution is mainly respiratory effects. So it can go from symptoms such as coughing, wheezing, sneezing, shortness of breath, throat, nose, eyes, irritation, but it can also go up to trigger asthma symptoms. Some pollutants cause cancer. So it's a big range of health effects depending on the chemicals per se or the pollutants per se and the exposure of these pollutants over how long you've been exposed to it.
Right. So how does a homeowner assess the air quality in their home? How do they tell if something's not right?
Actually, there's a lot that people can do in terms of improving their indoor air quality. What we usually recommend is to start with a visual inspection of your home, and that's something anyone can do very easily. It doesn't cost you anything because you do it yourself. We always recommend to look for mold, for example. So mold is a problem. It's everywhere in the air. It's in the outdoor air. It's in the indoor air. It only becomes a problem when it finds water to grow with or to grow on, water in a material to grow on. So if you start by a visual inspection, look for signs of moisture, excessive moisture, or water damages or water stains. Look for infiltration, water infiltration, of course. If you have a flood, just take measures to clean up the water and dry all the materials as quick as possible. If you do find either water damage, signs of water damage, or mold itself, if you do have visible mold, that you need to get rid of it for sure, even if you don't have any symptoms. Most of us, we don't react to mold, but some people are very sensitive to mold, and it could cause health effects, very bad health effects. So you might not have a reaction now, but it might come later. So that's the reason why we recommend removing any mold found in your home. It's not a normal situation. If you do have mold, it's because you have an underlying moisture problem or a water problem that allowed mold to grow at the first place.
Right.
So not only you need to clean up the mold or change the materials if they're moldy, but you need to fix the water problem. If you do have a water problem but you don't have mold yet, well, obviously you need to fix the water problem just to prevent mold from growing. Mm-hmm. Tips such as when you paint the walls or when you do buy new furniture and you have a lot of that smell that we like because it's comforting, because it's a new thing and we're happy to just get a new furniture or a new couch, it could be irritating sometimes. So when you do buy a furniture, when you do renovations in your home, or you paint or you varnish something, it's important that you open up the windows and you ventilate a lot your house by opening the windows or the fan, or just to bring fresh air and just to make sure that the pollutants don't build up in your living space. On a day-to-day basis, using the extract fan or your range hood when you cook is always a good thing. Opening up the windows to increase the ventilation is never bad. When you take a shower or a bath, use the bathroom fan just to make sure the moisture doesn't build up to prevent mold growth eventually, always. You got to be aware of your. Sometimes we say, well, you got to be aware of your body and your health symptoms, and you got to be aware of your body's health. You also got to be aware of your house health in a sense. Look for symptoms that could tell you that you have an indoor air quality problem.
Does the cleanliness of the ductwork have any impact on air quality? I'm wondering how you feel about getting them cleaned on a somewhat regular basis.
That's a question we often get. Honestly, we don't really recommend doing duct cleaning, generally speaking, because it rarely happens that they need to be cleaned out. And moreover, duct cleaning has not been shown to prevent health problems or to increase indoor air quality.
So as we've made our homes more energy efficient, they've become more airtight, causing an environment where we need to take extra steps to manage our air quality. Maybe you could talk about steps to improve ventilation, like HRVs and things like that.
Yeah, that's the phenomenon we called the Tupperware house. The problem with that is that we have less and less what we call natural ventilation. Because you have less natural ventilation, the pollutants tend to be trapped inside. So on a day-to-day basis, we create pollutants all the time. When the envelope is tighter, pollutants get trapped in your home. And that's where you either need to increase the natural ventilation by opening up the doors or the windows once in a while. It doesn't have to be all the time. Of course, in the winter, people say I cannot open my windows all the time in the winter, but even 15 or 10 to 15 minutes in the morning and 10 to 15 minutes at night makes a huge difference in terms of bringing fresh air and getting the pollutants out of the house. So you either increase the natural ventilation or you move to a mechanical ventilation. As you mentioned, HRV system, heat recovery ventilation systems.
Okay. What steps is Health Canada taking to improve overall air quality in our homes? Are they doing anything about building codes, regulations, etc.?
Yeah, we work closely with the NRC, the National Research Council of Canada. They do have a section or division dedicated to building research. So they do a lot of research in, for example, emission testing for materials, building materials. They do a lot of that. So we work closely with them. As I mentioned, off-gassing is one of the things we're interested in. It's better now than a few years ago because the industry voluntarily adopted some measures or some, not standards, but some code of practice. More and more people want to have low-emission materials, for example, low paints or low VOC paints or materials. So the industry complied to that and listened to their customers, I guess, and they came up voluntarily on a voluntary basis to provide people with these low emission.
So the off-gassing diminishes dramatically, I assume, over time. Like the first week is much worse than 3 months down the road.
Yeah, the emissions from building materials is always the highest when you first open up your thing or you first paint your walls, for example. It's higher at first, and it decreases over time a lot, especially if you ventilate a lot your house. If you open up the windows, it decreases over time.
So contaminants can come from the materials we use to build our homes, the techniques we use to construct them, the possessions we fill them with, and Mother Nature too.
Yes, totally. Mother Nature is a big, especially here in Canada with the winter we have.
How do we tell which product has lower VOCs?
Well, since there's no standards per se, and we're working on that, but right now there's no standards. Usually it's labeled as low VOC.
Okay. Well, thanks for providing an overview of air quality issues in Canadian homes and helping to raise awareness on this topic.
Well, you're very welcome, and keep in mind that you can do a lot for improving your indoor air quality.